You're listening to 710 KURV, your 956 drive home. I'm Zach Cantu on your home for Houston Astros baseball. Weeknights, weekends, all season long. They're up against the Mariners tonight, 6:40 pregame. Your home for Astros baseball is 710 KURV, made possible by Dr. T's Primary Care for Men and Women. We've had a lot of talks about property taxes. There's been people that have been very disgruntled around these here parts about the way or the direction that property taxes have traveled, which is up. And apparently, we ain't the only ones that are complaining. Joining us on 710 KURV from Make Politics Local Again is James Dickson out of Michigan. And he's a political commentator, former New York Post swing state reporter, joining us now. So, first off, tell us about Make Politics Local Again.
Yeah, Zach, thank you for having me. Basically, the idea of Make Politics Local Again, I'm a Republican, and so we are now in the post-Trump era of Republican politics, right? And so what do, right? When the most popular guy ever walks off the stage, you have to make politics local again. And so the whole thesis is if Republicans want to have a chance to win Michigan in 26, what you have to talk about is who runs Michigan currently, which is the Democrats. And see, the media is going to tell you this is a midterm and that, you know, they're going to talk about gas prices in Iran and all these far afield things. If we simply talk about who crashed Michigan into a ditch, that's the best way to win.
You know, and it's fascinating because we live here in Texas, and Texas is one of the reddest states in the union. And we've been having problems with property taxes as well. And so it's fascinating that this problem is happening nationwide in a lot of different states in different ways. So tell us about Michigan and why property taxes have been going up over there.
Yeah, I think the big problem in Michigan is we have income tax and property tax. So we get the double whammy, and the tax man, it feels like, is always reaching into your wallet. And that would be bad enough, right? Just structurally. But another thing that happens pretty regularly, just happened on May 5th, is communities, school systems, sheriff's offices, they'll put these millage requests, these property tax hike requests on the May and August ballot. We all know most people who do vote in November. So when you put something on a May ballot that affects my taxes, I can assume you're trying to avoid me and the scrutiny that would come as a voter. And so I just spent a lot of time on no May millage. This whole idea that if you want to ask me, I'm not opposed to every millage at every time, but can you at least be honest enough to ask me in November?
Well, okay, first off, yeah, that's one of the big pet peeves that I've had on my list is that there's too many elections now. Like I love voting and I love the land of the free and we get to make our voices heard every election, but now there's just too many. We just went through one, and I think we've got some special elections coming up, the runoffs here in the state of Texas for Senate and everything, and it's just too much. And then in a few months, we're going to be having more in November. It's just way too much. But tell us more about what have people been saying about the property taxes as a whole? I know you guys, we don't have a income tax in the state of Texas over here.
Right.
And we've been complaining about it. But then again, I mean, we complain about everything that's a tax over here.
Yeah. And so my understanding of the situation in Texas is that essentially these property taxes kind of offset like what an income tax might be. And so there's no income tax, but they get it another way, right? In Florida, they have toll roads, so everyone has to drive around with quarters. We all have these, you know, our own crosses to bear. And in Michigan, we have a woman named Carla Wagner. She was running as a Republican in the governor's race. Now she's an independent. But you could call her the mother of the anti-property tax movement. And so that went from Carla Wagner saying abolish the property tax and trying for constitutional amendments to that effect. Never went anywhere. She, you know, that takes a lot of money in Michigan. It takes a lot of organization that she doesn't have. But now you hear Ron DeSantis talking about it. Now you hear Greg Abbott talking about these things. And so Carla Wagner will probably never be elected to office, but she did earn a page in the history book just by bringing this to the forefront.
Joining us on 710 KURV is James Dickson from Make Politics Local Again. We're talking about property taxes, which has been a very, I'll say, popular topic that people are very passionate about. And it's not just happening here in the state of Texas. So what are some solutions? You always hear that counterpoint. Well, you know, if we don't have the taxes, we just got to raise some other tax somewhere else. And you're going to have to pay for it in some other way. Greg Abbott proposed, do we? We can just cut spending and it'll pay for it.
Right. Couldn't we just have our governments do less? And so I think about what just happened on the May 5th. We had a blue collar community, Macomb County, the home of the Reagan Democrats. It's been famous in just about every presidential election. A small community of less than 50,000 people. They just passed $175 million millage for their schools. Now, these are, like I said, blue collar area. It's not exactly the best schools in Michigan. And you're doing this to build buildings, not to hire teachers, not to hire tutors, not to do things that actually lead to kids being able to read and write. And so I think the situation in Michigan is what it is in Texas, where government is growing in its own way and for its own reasons that seem disconnected from what the average person wants and needs.
That is incredible. And we have two case studies that are basically polar opposites from each other. I find that fascinating.
Right. Blue state, red state, it's happening everywhere. And I think the political divide that's going to come in the 2030s is the people versus the government class that benefits from the status quo, that even in Republican areas tries to slip these millage requests past you. There's a reckoning that's coming. We might be a few years off, but it is coming.
Now, James, you at Make Politics Local Again, you're also talking about Republicans in the midterms, and I don't know what's your take on the past 2 years so far? What's your summary? How is it working, and how do you feel things are going to play out going into November?
I try to avoid the word midterm in Michigan because we're at a point where we've had Democrats running the state for 8 years, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and it is shocking how little time it takes to run something into the ground. It's a lot easier to destroy than to build. So what I'm trying to impress on my neighbors is that for us, this is not a midterm. This is our final exam. This is literally, are we going to steer Michigan back away from the abyss? Or are we going to Thelma and Louise this thing and never be seen again and crash into the ash heap? So this is it for us. So I'm just trying to get us. Our voters are habituated to showing up every 4 years and only if they love the presidential contender. So I heard a lot of people in 24 say I'd crawl over broken glass to vote for Donald Trump. Never heard anyone say that about their kids, their schools, or saving their home from overtaxation. I'm trying to start that conversation.
You are so right about that. We had a bond election here recently, locally for city of McAllen, which is where we're more or less from. And right at the tip of Texas, right at the southernmost tip of Texas, we're like 5 minutes away from Mexico. You make the wrong turn, you're at the checkpoint. You know what I mean? So this bond comes out. It's about $350 million, and it's heavily contested, right?
Right.
But only a few thousand came out to vote. It wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Out of many thousands, it was not nearly as high enough a turnout as it should have been, and that was the most criticized part about the election, which is fascinating. So how do you get people more interested now that midterms are coming up, and how do you explain to them, well, this is just as important as the presidential one because everything's closer to home?
It's kind of cool because you get to create a new habit, and we have a few checkpoints going into November. So if we had everything just in the one basket of November, there's a lot of people who still wouldn't catch it. Whereas, I've talked to some people from Roseville where they had that tax increase pass, $175 million. Then you got a community like Brighton, Michigan. It's one of our fastest growing areas. $156 million. Only 11,000 people show up to vote. It fails by 400 votes. The one in Roseville only passed by 200 votes, with only 4,000 people voting. So just by pointing out the form and function of these things, how few people vote, and that the system is designed for you to not vote, that words like midterm are meant to send a signal to you that, hey, Sean Hannity's not going to be talking about this race. You might as well not show up. And so if you can present voting as kind of a renegade act that's anti-system and fighting the power, I think that could work.
James, how do we get people to come out and find out more about what you're doing over at Make Politics Local Again?
Yes, sir. I'm on X at Down I-75. I'm on Substack, James Dickson Podcast, Spotify. Zach, I really appreciate the conversation. It was great.
Hey, thanks a lot for stopping by, James. Appreciate it. Hey, any final words before we go? I know we're talking about midterms and how important it is to go out and stuff, but any last message you'd like to impart?
What we saw during COVID is that the powerful fear when we get together, when we touch and agree. So it is imperative that we get together and touch and agree.
All right. Thanks for reaching out, James. Appreciate it. James Dickson at Make Politics Local again, joining us on News Talk 710 KURV.